I've been getting ready on the floor for years because without my glasses, I need to be about 6 inches away from the mirror so I can actually see what I'm doing. And somehow, this is a habit I haven't grown out of since my teenage years until now. Instead of buying something, I'm gonna build exactly what I need. The problem? I've never built a floating vanity before, so let's see how this goes. Hey, it's Robyn. I help women rebuild their homes and themselves one DIY project at a time. And this project pushed me because it's not just a floating vanity. It's drawers, a waterfall edge, and space for an electrical box. All the things that make a piece feel custom. So if you've ever wanted to build something exactly like this but aren't sure where to start, don't worry and keep watching because I'm gonna walk you through exactly how to do it. Let's go. Okay, so before we even touch a tool, we need a plan. So I've got my pencil, a notepad, and my tape measure, and we're gonna draw out what we're gonna build. I know I want it to be floating, and I know I want a clean look. I know that I want 3 drawers, but I wanted to make it look like there's only 2. Originally I was thinking I wanted it to be the full length of this wall, but I also want curtains here. So I have put the curtains up and we're gonna use that to measure from about here to here. And then I know I want it the same height as the shoe cabinet vanity we have over here so that it's nice and cohesive. So let's start the planning, because if your build plan is off, it just makes it that much harder in the shop. So I also need to be able to sit underneath this, because that's the whole point of getting off the floor, is being able to sit underneath it. Okay, so I've borrowed one of our dining room chairs to just see the height. I'm not actually gonna use a chair. I'm gonna use more of a poof so it can just tuck under and you can really see the wood grain on the front of the vanity. So that's 23 off the ground. It's gonna be right at the top of my thighs. So I certainly cannot go any lower. Not a bad height, right? I have to think about the depth of the drawers as well. I have to take into consideration space for the electrical, how the drawer slides, the cleat system at the back. And I also don't want it too deep because remember, I need to be very close to the mirror. Now that I have my measurements, let's do this. So if we go 39, these are exterior measurements. By 7.5 deep. So I'm gonna use 3/4 inch plywood to build this out of, which means I'm gonna lose 1.5 inches here and 1.5 inches here. This is proof right here that you don't need any kinds of fancy software. You just need a pencil and a piece of paper to get her figured out. Okay, so I have finalized the plan. Now that we have the plan, we can actually pick up our tools and start building. So I have sourced some wood from my shop. I have 1/4 inch plywood and 1/2 inch plywood for the drawer boxes. I also have 3/4 inch particle board that is walnut, which I will be using for the carcass of the floating vanity. Now I would prefer to use plywood, but I have this 3/4 inch particle board in my shop. I sourced it for a client project and then I didn't want to use it because it wasn't the right fit. And since I got it from my shop, it's essentially free, right? So the design is ready to go, but as a person does, I have been thinking about this design as I drive my kids to and fro from their activities. And I realized that if I'm making an inset drawer front, I actually need to add 1 inch. And to be honest, I am a little bit nervous about these inset drawer fronts. 1, I've never done inset drawer fronts, and 2, because I have the drawer fronts only attaching to those bottom 2 drawers and not the top. We'll see how it goes. Cross our fingers, cross our toes that it's all gonna work out. So let's get to building. We're gonna start with the carcass, which is that outside box. And since I want that wood grain to waterfall over the edges of the floating vanity as well as the drawer fronts, I'm gonna show you how we do a miter fold, where we're gonna cut, and I'm gonna walk you through how to measure for a waterfall edge. Let's go. Okay, so while I'm measuring, I have a pencil, a tape measure, a Sharpie, my design, and some painter's tape so that I can keep track of what's what while I'm measuring. The most important thing about doing a miter fold is you have to remember it's all continuous. If I was doing a traditional miter fold, I would start with one side of the project, measure, then measure the top, then measure the side, and then the bottom. Because you're essentially only gonna get 3 miter folds, like 3 waterfall edges, no matter how you do it. But because this project is up against a wall, I'm really only concerned about that one side that we're gonna see. I'm going to start actually by measuring the top, the 39-inch top, then we're gonna go into the right side, and then we're gonna go into the bottom, and then I'm not too worried about the left side that's up against the wall because I'm most worried about the top, the front, and the right side. Okay, so as you can see, I have the pieces all labeled before I've made any cuts. I have all the arrows pointing the same way, which let me know that those pieces all go against the walls. I've made a 39-inch tick, so that gives me the top. 7.5 is there, and then 39 and 7.5. So it works out good. I'm going to rip a 14-inch piece off here, and then I am going to cut this drawer front, and you can see I brought my T-square there just to make sure that I am avoiding that blemish. Okay, so now that I have the top side, bottom side, all in one plywood piece cut to width, I am just going to rip it down at 90 on my table saw to make sure that it is all square. And then after that, we're gonna cut it down into each individual piece on the miter saw, also at 90, because I believe starting with just 90 cuts is easiest, or gives you the best look, the best outcome. Then once we get the pieces cut down to 90, we will come to the table saw and make those miters for our miter fold and our waterfall edge. I had all 4 pieces cut, the top, the bottom, and the 2 sides. None of it was square. I tried trimming it and it still was off. I would measure the side closer to the wall on the top and then the side that would be closer to the drawer fronts, and the measurements were off. I hummed and hawed about what to do, but we are going to start over. So I've lost a couple hours of work, but that's what happens. So we're gonna start over, and for some reason I came in to make lunch and I was like, my miter saw must be off. So I went and checked my miter saw, and sure enough, not even 5 degrees, just like a little bit off to throw the whole thing off. So we will get that adjusted right now. Here's your PSA to check your miter saw. Take 2. So we have our top and our bottom and our 2 sides, and they are all square. So I prefer to do my 45s on my table saw, but this is 39 inches wide and my table saw doesn't go that wide. So we are going to cut on my miter saw. I still might do the sides on my table saw. So we have to do both of the ends of these. And then since I want to try to waterfall the drawer fronts as well, we have to do the fronts. Let me show you how I like to mark out my 45s on my miter saw. So we have to miter this end, that's where it's gonna waterfall over, and then this as well. I'm gonna flip it towards me, and I know that the side that's towards me needs to be the full length. So I'm gonna take my carpenter's square, I'm gonna put the end right up against the end, and I will mark off that angle, and then I'm gonna put it down. I'm gonna take my carpenter's square again, but at 90, match up the angle on this side, and then I'm just gonna run it here. So I know that is roughly where I want my blade to be, and we'll get cutting. I'm gonna do the side pieces. I've mitered the front of the side pieces. Now I need to do both of the sides of the side pieces. This will go against the wall, so I don't need to do that. Now my side piece is 7.5 this way. My miter saw is set at 6 and roughly 13/16, and it's at a 45-degree angle. I'll take a picture of that so you guys can see my settings. I've already taken a test piece and made sure all my settings are good. So we have all our separate pieces cut and every side that we need to is mitered. I also have, and you might recognize these from my DIY feature wall in the bedroom. That is why you save your pieces, folks. So this was the Roman clay test piece, but I have cut them down to the right depth so that they can go in and act as supports when I clamp everything together as I do the glue up. We have 2 of our miter joints lined up here. I'm going to apply wood glue in the joint. When I'm doing glue ups, I always keep a wet rag. Where did it go? So I can wipe any glue. So we'll fold those joints together. We have the packing tape here that is just gonna help us hold it all together while we get it placed. Get rid of that glue. Put on way too much. I like to take my flathead screwdriver and wrap it in my wet cloth and get in right into that joint.
If you've been thinking about starting a DIY project, comment build below and save this video for when you're ready. Okay, now that we have our carcass built, we are going to start on drawers. I took the clamps all off last night and I just have these supports in here, left them in here overnight. So I have 3 drawers to build, 2 for the bottom and 1 that will go the full width on the top. I'm doing a different method than I typically do. Typically when I build drawers, I use 1/2-inch plywood for the entire drawer, the sides and the bottom, and I use pocket screws to assemble it all. This time we're gonna use 1/2-inch plywood for the sides, and then I'm going to use 1/4-inch plywood for the bottom. Since nothing really heavy is going in these drawers, should be okay. So with that means I'll use pocket screws to assemble the box, and then I'll put dados in to put that drawer bottom in. So let's get building. Okay, I have all the pieces cut for the drawers except for the drawer bottoms. Because I am using material from my garage, the upper drawer is about 1/4 inch smaller than what I had planned for, like not 1/4 inch less deep, I guess is what is the correct words. Now I am considering doing the bottom of this one just with glue and nails. I don't want to lose any more depth by running a dado and then putting the 1/4 inch material in. I'm still gonna dado these ones, so that's what's next. We're gonna run our dados and then we'll cut our bottom pieces and assemble the drawers. Okay, so I've made 1 pass on every side, so it looks like this. But since I'm not using an actual dado blade, we have to make a couple more passes. Okay, second pass is done. And now we're gonna rip that middle portion out, and then our 1/4 inch bottom will slide right into there. Now that we have all of our pieces, we now are going to drill our pocket holes and then start the assembly. For drilling pocket holes, you need a drill, you need some clamps, and you need a pocket hole jig. I use the most basic Craig jig. We're using 1/2-inch plywood, so we're gonna be using 1-inch coarse screws. So we have our back, which has pocket holes, our front, and our 2 sides. So I'm going to assemble the sides to the front using the 1-inch coarse threads, and then we're gonna slide the bottom piece in, and then we'll attach this piece. And now I'm going to do the top drawer, and I decided instead of pocket hole assembly, we're just gonna do a full glue up on this one. Time to take the top drawer out of its glue up and attach the bottom. I made an error while I was cutting the bottom. So what happened was I cut it the same size as this piece and forgot that these 2 end pieces were gonna make it longer. I don't have any more of the same plywood, too short by 1 inch, but you're never gonna believe this. I went over to my pile of wood to look to see if I had any 1/4 inch material that I thought I'd be able to cut to size, and this, it's slightly
too short, but it is going to work. It's oak plywood, but it saves me from buying more 1/4 inch. And there's something that is so satisfying about using pieces that are in your scrap piles. Okay, the top drawer is assembled. I did nails and glue, and you'll see I flushed the front side, and then the back side, it's not flush, and neither are the sides. Now, do I recommend doing this? No. Would I ever do this for a client? No. This is just because this is my project, and it means I don't have to make a trip to town to get another 1/4 inch plywood. Okay, so the last piece we have to construct is the skeleton, which is that inside T-piece, and it gives those bottom 2 drawers slides somewhere to go. So the inside drawer slides will attach to that bottom T, and then the top T is basically just stability for the bottom piece. Okay, I have assembled the skeleton with pocket screws and wood glue. Next, I'm gonna dry fit everything to make sure that it all fits. Okay, so drawer sides can be tricky, so just take your time. Alignment is more important than speed. I like to use another piece of wood, whether it's 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch, just to get level. Wider side goes on the cabinet. This side goes on the drawer with this piece at the front. So I'm gonna put that right there. I'm gonna use my square to make sure that this is lined up here. Make sure it's butting right up against there, and then I'm just gonna hold this down and screw right in. Okay, the skeleton is ready to be glued in. I have the drawer slides installed on that support piece, and I have cut 2 3/4 and 1 inch pieces to support these ends in the glue up so that the depth remains the same on the ends as it does in the center. Okay, we have a couple more things to do on our drawers. So the top drawer, because it doesn't have a drawer front, I'm just gonna notch out a handle here so I can get it opened and closed. And then we have to work on the drawer fronts. So let's do it. Fingers crossed, toes crossed. It's gonna work out, right? It'll work out. Okay, since we don't have any hardware on our drawer fronts, and I essentially want it to look like this with the wood grain going seamlessly across, and I've put these handles into the bottom. I'm going to try the double-sided tape method using this tape to attach it to the drawer, and then hopefully the tape will hold, and then we'll take the drawer and the front out and then we'll attach it with screws from the inside of the drawer. So this is the last step in the assembly, and then we're gonna finish it all and get it on the wall. I'm excited. I'm gonna work on the cleat system. So originally I was going to use just a scrap piece of plywood, but since it took 2 tries to make the carcass of the floating vanity, I'm gonna use this piece from the carcass. We are going to measure it to length and then to width,
And then we're gonna slice that 45 right downer on the table saw. And there you have it, the homemade cleat system. So this will go on the wall like that so that the angle is going down towards the wall. This I will drill pocket holes into and put it in the back of the vanity, and then essentially it will just rest on top.
So once you have your cleat system cut and installed to the back of the vanity, you can then install it onto the wall. I like to always bring my piece in and set it up on a box, even if it's not the right height, just to get a feel for it width-wise. If I measured it right. Bang on. Now that everything is assembled, we are ready to start the finishing. So I'm not putting any stain on this. I'm just doing my go-to protective coat, which is Minwax polyacrylic in clear satin. So we are going to get first coat on, let it dry, sand. Second coat, let it dry, sand. Third on the outside and the drawer fronts. And then it is install time, and it'll be hanging up on the wall ready for use. And this is the finished look. From getting ready on the floor to a space that actually works for me. And here's the thing, I didn't actually know how to build this when I started. You saw me figure it out in real time. So if you've been sitting on an idea like this or waiting to DIY something, let this be your sign to start. And I don't know about you, but this feels like a real upgrade from getting ready on the floor. Okay. Quick question. Would you add a walnut top to this shoe cabinet to tie it in to the walnut floating vanity? Or would you leave it as is? Here are the two options. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We are not done yet. Next up is adding a mirror and maybe some lighting and some finishing touches in behind me. So make sure you come back for the full reveal. And remember, you don't need to be an expert, you just need to begin. See you in the next one.